The school bully thought he could get away with it until he messed with the wrong girl. Mia Adams never wanted to stand out. She was 8 years old, loved drawing animals in her notebook, and could spend hours talking about dinosaurs. But at Westlake Academy, a private school in Scottsdale, Arizona, she wasn't just another kid. She was one of the few black students in a place where most of the children came from old money and even older mindsets. Most of her classmates ignored her, but Ethan Carter? He made sure she never forgot she was different. Ethan was the kind of kid who never heard the word no. His parents donated an entire wing to the school, so he walked around like he owned the place. He had everything: a brand new electric scooter, the latest sneakers, even a personal chauffeur. And yet, the thing he seemed to enjoy the most was making other kids miserable. And for some reason, Mia was his favorite target. At first, it was small things: stealing her eraser, blocking her path in the hallway, laughing when she got an answer wrong in class. The kind of stuff teachers brushed off as kids being kids, but slowly, the cruelty grew sharper. "Why is your hair like that?" He smirked one morning, reaching out to touch Mia's curls before she jerked away. "Looks like a mop." Another time, when the class was learning about family trees, he leaned over and whispered, "You don't even look like your parents. Maybe they picked the wrong kid." Mia wanted to believe that if she ignored him, he'd get bored, that if she stayed quiet, he'd move on. But bullies don't stop when you ignore them. They escalate. And one afternoon during recess, Ethan took things too far. But what he didn't know was that Mia wasn't just any girl. And the person he was messing with, he was about to find out the hard way. Recess was supposed to be a break from everything: math tests, reading assignments, and the stiff silence of the classroom. But for Mia, it was just another part of the school day she had to survive. That day, she sat alone on the swings, dragging her feet through the sand. The other kids were playing tag near the monkey bars, their laughter echoing through the playground. She wished she could join them, but she knew how it would go. If she got too close, Ethan would notice. And when Ethan noticed, things always got worse. Unfortunately, she didn't have to get close this time. Ethan found her. He strolled over with his usual smirk, hands stuffed into the pockets of his expensive hoodie. His two friends, Logan and Ryan, followed behind, their grins telling her they already knew what was coming. "Still playing by yourself, huh?" Ethan said, stopping in front of her swing. "That's kind of sad." Mia didn't answer. She just gripped the metal chains a little tighter. "Maybe no one wants to play with you," he continued. "Or maybe they just don't like—" Before he could finish, a voice interrupted. "Leave her alone, Ethan." Mia turned. Samantha, one of the few kids who wasn't afraid to call Ethan out, stood a few feet away, arms crossed. She wasn't exactly Mia's friend, but she wasn't a bystander either. Ethan laughed. "Relax, I'm just talking to her." He turned back to Mia, lowering his voice. "Or do you need someone to fight your battles for you?" Mia wanted to say something, to stand up for herself, but the words felt stuck, like they were trapped behind her ribs. Ethan must have taken that as a victory because he grinned wider. "That's what I thought." He reached out and shoved the swing, sending Mia stumbling off. Her hands hit the ground first, scraping against the rough gravel. A sharp sting ran up her palms, but she didn't make a sound. A few kids gasped. Others just watched, their eyes darting between Ethan and Mia, like this was just another part of the show. No teachers were in sight. Ethan squatted beside her, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "You don't belong here." And then, just like that, he stood up and walked away, like nothing had happened. Mia sat there for a moment, staring at the tiny rock stuck to her palms. Samantha kneeled beside her, whispering, "Are you okay?" But Mia barely heard her. She wasn't okay, and for the first time she realized something. Ethan wasn't going to stop, unless someone made him, but Ethan had no idea that he was messing with the wrong family, and soon he was about to learn the hard way. The next day felt heavier. Mia walked through the school hallways with her head down, gripping the straps of her backpack. Her hands still stung from the fall yesterday, but she hadn't told anyone. Not her teacher, not the principal, not even her parents. She just wanted to get through the day, but bullies don't work like that. By lunchtime, Ethan was already circling again. Mia sat at the far end of the cafeteria, picking at the peanut butter and jelly sandwich her mom had packed. The air smelled like stale fries and disinfectant, and the room buzzed with the chatter of kids swapping snacks and laughing at TikToks. Then she heard it. "Hey, Mia." She didn't look up. Maybe if she ignored him. A hand slapped her sandwich off the tray. Her stomach dropped as she watched it hit the floor, peanut butter smearing against the tiles. Laughter. Not from everyone, but enough. Ethan leaned over, his voice low. "Oops. Guess that was an accident." Mia felt something bubbling inside her, something hot, something sharp. Before she could stop herself, she finally spoke. "You're pathetic." For the first time, Ethan's smirk faltered, just for a second. Then, just as quickly, his eyes darkened. "What did you just say to me?" Mia stood up, her hands curling into fists at her sides. Her voice didn't shake this time. "I said you're pathetic." The cafeteria had gone quiet. Even the kids who normally kept their heads down were watching now. Ethan's face twisted with something ugly, and then he shoved her, hard. Mia stumbled back, her sneakers slipping against the floor. She hit the ground with a dull thud, her elbows taking the worst of the impact. Pain shot through her arms, but the shock was worse. Nobody moved. Not the teachers standing at the front of the cafeteria. Not the kids clutching their lunch trays. Not the ones whispering, wide-eyed. Nobody moved, except for one person, Samantha. She shot up from her seat. "What is wrong with you?" she snapped, her voice cutting through the silence. But before Ethan could answer, before Mia could even think, a deep, firm voice echoed across the room. "Ethan Carter, principal's office, now." Mr. Donovan, the vice principal, stood at the front of the cafeteria. His expression was unreadable, but his tone left no room for argument. Ethan didn't argue. For the first time, he looked nervous. Still, he turned to Mia, his voice cold. "You're gonna regret this." And then he walked away. Mia sat there, heart pounding, hands trembling. She thought she had won, but Ethan wasn't done, and what he did next would change everything. Mia didn't say a word during the car ride home. She sat in the back seat, staring out the window as the familiar streets of Paradise Valley blurred past. The desert sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows over the pavement. Normally she'd be chatting about her day or humming along to the radio, but today her hands were balled up in her lap, elbows still aching from the fall. Her mother, Jessica Adams, glanced at her in the rearview mirror. She noticed everything. "Baby, what's wrong?" Mia swallowed hard. She wanted to lie, to say nothing like she always did, but the words wouldn't come. So she just held up her scraped elbows. The car jerked to a stop in the driveway. Her mother turned around so fast that her seatbelt locked. Her sharp brown eyes scanned Mia's arms, her expression shifting from concern to something else, something cold. "Mia, who did this?" Mia hesitated, not because she didn't want to tell her, but because she wasn't sure what would happen when she did. But before she could answer, the front door swung open. Her father was home. Jonathan Adams, 6'3", salt and pepper hair, a presence that filled every room he walked into. People in boardrooms hung on to his every word, investors, executives, politicians. When he spoke, people listened. And now he was staring at his daughter, taking in the bruises on her elbows, the stiffness in her posture. He didn't ask questions, not yet. He just stepped forward, crouching in front of her until they were eye to eye. "Tell me what happened." And this time, Mia did. She told them everything. The teasing, the shoves, the way Ethan knocked her lunch onto the floor, the way the other kids laughed, the way the teachers saw but did nothing. By the time she finished, her mother looked ready to march to the school herself. But Jonathan? He was quiet. Too quiet. Then finally, he exhaled, and when he spoke, his voice was low, controlled. "I'll handle it." Mia had heard her dad say those words before, when an employee tried to cut corners, when a competitor made a dirty move. And every single time, it meant the same thing. Someone was about to learn a lesson. But Ethan and his family had no idea what was coming. The next morning, Westlake Academy was about to get a wake-up call. Jonathan Adams didn't just show up. He arrived with purpose. Dressed in a tailored navy blue suit, he stepped out of his black Escalade like he was walking into a board meeting. Except this wasn't a business deal. This was personal, and he wasn't alone. Behind him, 2 lawyers followed, sharp-eyed and carrying thick legal binders. His wife, Jessica, was right beside him, her expression a mask of controlled fury. Inside, the school wasn't ready. The receptionist stammered when she saw them. Mr. Adams, do you have an appointment?" Jonathan didn't pause, didn't slow down. "I'm here to see Principal Reynolds, now." The receptionist picked up the phone, her hands shaking slightly as she whispered something into the receiver. Within seconds, the principal's door swung open. Principal Reynolds was a balding man in his early 60s, the kind of administrator who cared more about donors than students. He forced a smile, adjusting his tie. "Mr. Adams, what a surprise." Jonathan cut him off. "No surprises. You know why I'm here." Principal Reynolds cleared his throat, gesturing toward the chairs in front of his desk. "Please have a seat. Let's discuss this calmly." Jonathan didn't sit. "My daughter was assaulted in your school. You knew about the bullying. You did nothing. That ends today." For the first time, Reynolds looked nervous. But before he could respond, the door opened again. Ethan's parents had arrived, William and Catherine Carter. Dressed in designer clothes, reeking of old money and privilege, they walked in like they owned the place. Because in their minds, they did. Catherine barely glanced at Jonathan, brushing blonde hair from her face with a sigh. "This is all a misunderstanding." Jonathan's jaw tightened. "A misunderstanding?" He gestured toward his daughter, who was sitting quietly beside Jessica. "That boy put his hands on my child." William scoffed. "They're kids. Boys roughhouse. It's not that deep." Jessica's hands curled into fists. "Not that deep?" Her voice was sharp. "Your son has been harassing Mia for months." Catherine rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. If your daughter can't handle a little teasing." "Teasing?" Jonathan's voice dropped, and the room went still. For the first time, Catherine looked uneasy. Jonathan stepped forward, his presence commanding the room. "Your son assaulted my daughter. This isn't teasing. This isn't kids being kids. This is a pattern you've ignored, a pattern this school has enabled." Reynolds opened his mouth, scrambling for control. "I assure you, Westlake takes bullying very seriously." Jonathan cut him off again. "Really? Because so far, the only thing this school has taken seriously is Ethan's parents' donations." Silence. Reynolds swallowed. "Mr. Adams." Jonathan leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. My lawyers have already reviewed Westlake's policies. Ethan Carter will be suspended immediately. And if this happens again," he set a printed legal document on the desk, "I will sue this school. I will take it to court. And I will make sure every parent in Scottsdale knows that Westlake Academy protects bullies." Reynolds paled. Catherine and William Carter weren't laughing anymore. For the first time, they looked nervous. Jonathan glanced at them, his voice steady. "You've spent years shielding your son from consequences. That ends today." And for the first time in his life, Ethan Carter was about to learn that some people are untouchable. But not him. Ethan Carter had never been in trouble before. Not really. Sure, teachers had warned him, given him talks, maybe even called his parents once or twice, but real consequences, that was new. So when he sat in the principal's office later that day, his leg bounced under the desk, fingers gripping the armrests of his chair. Across from him, his parents were whispering furiously to each other. His mom's face was twisted in frustration, his dad's jaw tight. "This is ridiculous," Catherine hissed. "Suspending him over some playground nonsense?" "It's not nonsense." They turned. Jonathan Adams stood in the doorway, his presence enough to make the room feel smaller. His wife, Jessica, was right beside him, her hand resting protectively on Mia's shoulder. Ethan looked at the girl he had spent months tormenting. She didn't look scared. She looked stronger. Principal Reynolds cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter, given the severity of the situation, the board has agreed that Ethan will be suspended for 2 weeks." 2 weeks? William shot out of his chair. "This could go on his record." Jonathan's voice was calm but unshakable. "It should." Ethan gritted his teeth. "This is so stupid. I didn't even—" Jessica's eyes snapped to him. "Be quiet." For the first time in his life, Ethan shut up. The room was thick with tension, the weight of reality finally sinking in. "You think you're untouchable," Jonathan said, his gaze locked on Ethan. "Because of who your parents are. Because people have let you get away with things. But let me make this clear. Your money won't protect you here." Catherine scoffed. "You're acting like he committed a crime. They're kids." Jonathan didn't even blink. Kids grow up, and if they don't learn accountability now, they become adults who think they can do whatever they want. That stops today. Ethan swallowed hard. For the first time, he wasn't in control. And then Principal Reynolds dropped the final blow. After Ethan's suspension, he will be required to attend counseling sessions with our school psychologist. If there is another incident, we will move forward with expulsion. Silence. Catherine looked like she wanted to scream. William's face turned red. But Ethan? Ethan felt something he'd never felt before, a sinking, twisting weight in his chest. Guilt. Not because he got caught, not because of the suspension, but because for the first time, he realized Mia hadn't done anything to deserve this. She wasn't weak. She wasn't a joke. And no matter what he had told himself to justify it, he had been wrong. Mia stood, her small frame somehow feeling taller than him now. She looked at him, not with anger, but with disappointment, and that somehow hurt more. She turned, walking toward the door with her parents, and just before they left, Jonathan looked over his shoulder. Think about the person you want to become, Ethan, because right now, you're not him. And then they were gone. Ethan sat there, staring at the floor, his parents still arguing. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel untouchable. He felt small. But the real question was, would he change, or would he stay exactly the same? The air felt lighter at home that evening. Mia sat on the couch with a bowl of popcorn, flipping through channels. It wasn't that everything was suddenly perfect. Her elbows still stung, and the memory of Ethan shoving her still lingered in her mind. But for the first time in months, she felt safe. Her dad had kept his promise. He had handled it. And Ethan? Well, he had finally learned that actions have consequences. Jessica sat beside her, gently placing a bandage on her arm. How are you feeling, baby? Mia thought about it for a second. Better? Jessica smiled, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. Good. From across the room, Jonathan watched them, arms folded. His sharp business instincts never turned off. But tonight, he just looked like a dad, a proud one. You know, he said, walking over, not everyone would have handled that situation the way you did. Mia tilted her head. What do you mean? You stood up for yourself, even when no one else did. He lowered himself onto the couch, looking her in the eyes. That takes strength. Mia thought about all the time she had stayed silent, all the moments she let Ethan's words chip away at her. But in the end, she had spoken up, and that had changed everything. She smiled a little. I guess. Jonathan chuckled, nudging her shoulder. No guessing, it's a fact. For the first time in a long time, Mia believed it. Ethan sat alone in his room, staring at the suspension letter on his desk. His parents were still furious, ranting about the school's decision, about how ridiculous it was, about how they would fix this. But deep down, Ethan wasn't sure it should be fixed. For the first time, he didn't feel like laughing, because Jonathan Adams' words kept replaying in his head. Think about the person you want to become, because right now, you're not him. Ethan didn't like admitting it, but maybe, just maybe, Mia had been stronger than him this entire time. And that made him feel ashamed. Some people go their whole lives avoiding consequences. Ethan almost did, but sooner or later, life has a way of catching up. And for Mia, she had learned something too. Silence doesn't protect you. Speaking up does. Bullies win when you shrink yourself. But when you stand tall, they don't seem so big anymore. And sometimes, when a bully finally gets what's coming to them, they realize they were the weakest one all along. If you've ever been in a situation like Mia's, just know you deserve to be heard. You deserve respect. And no one, no matter how powerful they think they are, has the right to take that from you. And if you're watching this and realizing you've acted like Ethan in the past, it's never too late to be better. What do you think? Should Ethan change, or will he stay the same? Let me know in the comments.